is 3 o'clock, and I like to honor those who are on time. That's what I always tell my students. Honor those who are on time, and I think all of you that are in attendance here today, I appreciate you coming, and you're all sitting on this side, so that's good. I told the folks it's being recorded, as you can see there, so you're all looking scholarly, and as the camera pans. Looks pretty good. My name's Chris Genter, and I'm from Chico State, and I see many of my Chico State colleagues here, but before we get started, how many of you are from Butte College? Look, whoa! Butte College is well represented. I saw some of you on the list. How many of you just came in today, or were you all registered? I emailed out the handouts, so did you get the handouts from me? I see some head nodding.
No, I didn't get it.
Not to worry. Not to worry. I will, when the session's over with outside, I have them with me. We'll send it, and you're among friends here. Everybody that had registered by a certain time, I sent them out. So
Maybe I just didn't.
it's the low anxiety. As you're going through, instead of going, she's funny, she seems nice, but will she remember to get the handouts to me? So we want to take care of that part first. So we've got Butte College really well represented. Is Yuba? There were some folks on the list from Yuba College. Okay. Chico State folks. And is there somebody, area that I haven't called yet? So we're okay. Where are you from?
Fresno.
Ida.
Yes.
I'm coming to your session tomorrow morning on Twitter.
Okay.
See, this is what CELT is all about. So I do a little tweeting, but when I saw yours, I went, that's for me. So Ida Jones from Fresno all the way up here. Her session's tomorrow morning at 8.
Thanks for the free PR.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and that's what's fun about CELT, that it's meant for faculty to share with each other. So I'm really happy to be here. I'm happy that you're here. And I think I have some interesting things to share with you. And one of the things that I'd like to start off with is that I am not an expert on copyright or Creative Commons, either of these areas, but I have a growing interest in these. And so I want to give you my rationale of why I'm standing up here. I'm an arts educator, and I see some heads nodding already. And I have a high level of curiosity about how things work and trying to play with different things. My School of Ed director is here, and she'll tell you I keep coming in and going, look what I figured out, or I can do this or that. But all along the way, I really also have a sense of justice and fair play that's inside of me. And when I start doing some of these assignments with the new technologies that are coming up with my students, that are coming in from undergrad or other places, they'll say, look what I did. And I said, where'd you get that image? And they said, it was really easy. I went to Google. And I said, you just took it from Google? Yeah. And I said, you can't just take it from Google. Oh, Dr. Genter, you can. Let me show you. And I'm thinking, okay, so they don't quite have this understanding. So I started some time ago, actually before I came to Chico years ago, my first encounter with copyright and concerns with copyright was when I was a high school teacher. And I worked for the yearbook, and I did artwork and things. And I had a really nice piece of artwork that I did for the community, but it was my piece. But it was taken that someone stopped by the school, they took a photo of it without my permission, without me even knowing it. They matted it, they framed it, and they gave it to the governor of Pennsylvania. Did I mind? I was thrilled, but there was no credit. No one knew. And I went to the people at the school, and they said, oh, you know, the representative said, he knew you, not to worry, it was no big deal. And it was a big deal to me, it hurt. And so I've never forgotten that, and I thought, well, I'm glad that it went that far, but at the same time, it's that sense of fair play. Did I want money? No. Do I want money now? It would have been nice to say Chris Genter, Clarion, PA. And it's the same thing, that what goes around comes around. And so the other incident occurred when I came to Chico State. I'd been here a few years, and I was learning how to do HTML here at Chico. And the Department of Education was the third department on campus to have a website. And I was the webmaster. And so I worked really hard at creating some digital art. I was teaching myself as I went, and probably a month later, a colleague of mine was starting to explore this as well with some of his students, and he said, check out the site that my students did. And I looked at it, and there was all my artwork. And I said, that's my artwork. Yeah, isn't that great? And I said, but no one asked me. And the response was, it's only art. Whoa. So the wound that had kind of closed opened up again. And I had a little chat with this colleague of mine, and I just said, art is as much as written work. And so I'm not here to profess art per se, but it's this general concept. So that's my rationale for standing here today. And so now that I've shared a little bit with you, you're going to be engaged. So I see we have some new technology. We have an iPad right here. And then we have a tablet and pen. Both of these will work. So if you'll number from 1 to 10, we're going to do a little quiz. And this quiz that I have for you, it's online. I didn't make it, but it's I have made it large enough for you to see. There's no grades on this. Laura's like making a face like, we're going to go through these 10 questions, and it's either going to be T or F for true or false, or A, B, C, D, and then we'll go back through it. So it's the current feelings about copyright. You ready? Yep. All right, here we go. So, well, this is what we're headed. Copyright quiz. So this is on the handout that I gave you. Mediaology is a very good site. There's much more information than this, so it's online if you want to share it with your students. It's all set to go, but in here I wasn't sure. So, copyright is the legal right to reproduce, publish, sell, and distribute an original work, and applies to both published and unpublished works. What do you think? True or false? I can see folks in the back row like communicating with me. All right, here's the second one. To obtain copyright protection, an original work must be registered with the U.S. Copyright Office. What do you think? True or false? Just be bold. An original work is covered by copyright protection if it contains all of the following 3 elements. The symbol C, the copyright, the year of the first publication, the name of the copyright owner. True or false? I actually shared this quiz with my students on Monday night. They loved the class. They loved that this wasn't graded. We had an excellent discussion. 4, work that is not covered by copyright protection falls into the category called fair use, free and public domain, or none of the above. All works created in the U.S. are covered under the U.S. Copyright Law 4. All right. Am I going too fast? Keep things moving along. Without fair use exceptions in the law, in order to copy the work of another person, you would have to A, pay a fee to the U.S. Copyright Office, B, do nothing. Making copies is not covered by the U.S. copyright law. C, obtain written permission for exactly what you intend to do with that person's work. Or D, none of the above. You cannot legally copy something that is copyrighted, permission or not. Okay, nice. How long does an author creator have copyright protection for their work? A, forever. B, 30 years. C, as long as they are alive. Or D, as long as they are alive plus 70 years following. See some furrowed brows on this one. All right. Number 7, Creative Commons is a website that works to encourage sharing of other people's creations by A, hosting work on a website where nothing is covered by copyright, B, letting the owner allow copies of her work and specify the conditions for it without people having to write for permission, C, assisting owners with registering at the Copyright Office and listing the specific conditions, or D, all of the above. Okay. 8. It is legal under the Education Fair Use to make multiple classroom copies of a book chapter or a single magazine article and reuse those copies each semester. True or false? 9. It is legal under Education Fair Use to record a program from television and use it in the classroom, provided it is relevant to the current curriculum being taught. Just enough to whet your interest here. It's like, and because of the changing technologies, these questions are coming more and more. They didn't used to show up so much, and that's part of what we want to get at. And here's number 10. Is it legal under educational fair use to copy and use songs in the classroom that a teacher has legally purchased? True or false? Okay, here we go. So I've got the answers. So the first one is true, that it exists, and you know the way this quiz had it listed is to protect profits, but really copyright was started to encourage creativity and original work and to continue having it developed. And so when it was created, all of these technologies didn't exist, and so there's a connection that's starting to come into play now that didn't exist when it was first created. You do not have to have things registered with the Copyright Office. When you create something, it's automatically covered now. It's in a tangible form. Although it's recommended, I heard some folks out in the lobby before we came in, copyright's one of those hot topics. You can get folks going, and they were saying with games and things, if you're a gamer, you think it might go big? Yeah, I think that I would register it. So, take that. Number 3, false. It's recommended but not required to have any of those items there. And this changed in 1989. So it used to be, the answer was yes. You had to have things copyrighted, but now it's covered. So every time Laura puts together this creative presentation for TLP and they do something, it is covered by copyright. Every time I do one of my little iPad paintings, it's covered, yeah.
Even if it's completely anonymous with no markings about
no markings are needed.
Who created it, what?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's covered by you.
I just want to say that question threw me. I wasn't sure how to answer it because, of course, it is covered by copyright if it's got all those elements. It just doesn't need them.
That's right. Right, it doesn't exist there. And I think the way this was worded, though, the key point is that you used to have all of that showing, and since 1989, that's a clarification. And some people aren't sure about that. I think most of you probably got this one, although I liked the choices. They were creative. So, public domain. How many of you have a Kindle or a Nook? Okay, so Ida, when did you get your Kindle or your e-reader?
When it was big.
When it was big. And probably one of the first things you discovered when you started looking for books is, wow, there's a lot of older books I can get for free. And 1923 and back are the ones that are in public domain. So that's where that 70 years comes into play as we go forward with it. So this one is C. Without fair use exception in the law, you actually have to do this. And our graduate students have to do this for their MA projects. If they're including something, and this is a public institution, and copyright's tied to the government, and it's a law, and so if they have a diagram of some sort of classroom setup from a particular book that they want to use, they have to write, and they have to have the written permission that gets turned in with their thesis or project. That's required. So you still need to do that. Number 6, it's D, 70 years following. That's a long time. This presentation's only 50 minutes long, but there's a wonderful little clip that's online, which is about 7 minutes long, and it comes out of Stanford's multimedia area, and it's called A Fair Use tail. Fair use tail. And what they've done is, and we're kind of moving into that, they've taken clips from Disney, and you start right at the beginning, and this is not part of Disney, and you can see and you can go through it, but they take the words from all these Disney clips, but they're following the fair use guidelines, the guidelines, not the laws, of staying under 10%. So there's like 30 seconds or 10 seconds here, and they clip them all together. Pretty interesting, and there are many sites that have all sorts of information dealing with that. So Creative Commons is a website that works to encourage. The answer is B. The owner can specify conditions for people ahead of time. And so that's what we want to focus on today. I want to show you and how you can go about that. Multiple copies, you cannot make multiple. It's okay if the material is adequately brief, spontaneously copied in compliance with the cumulative effect test, but they cannot be used again and again. This was the one where a lot of the K-12 educators in my grad class on Monday night, their jaws dropped. And some of them said, it's not me, I know this, but we're being told because of the state budget, which is really, so you can't do that. It's a one-time use, because if it's tied to buying the materials, so that's where that comes in. It's legal under educational fair use. You can record a single copy off air simultaneously, and it can be used for 45 days. A lot of people don't know that. They have them stacked on their shelves and pull them out again. Things update. This one is setting the tone for what's starting to happen with this. It says that it's false. Portions and limit as stated by fair use guidelines. And so what I want to point out is that word guidelines. It's not a law. But I can give you examples of this. For music, whichever is less, 10% or 30 seconds. If you've ever gone to iTunes or you've gone looking for CDs online and you want to listen to them, you get 30 seconds because the average song is about 3 minutes. And so they're following the guidelines. What's happened, though, is those guidelines were written a couple decades ago. And now the technology is changing. People are doing mashups, and they're starting to feel growing pains. And I don't have all of the answers. I have some ideas. I have a book that I'm reading now that I'll share with you. But what has been occurring, those guidelines aren't fitting what's happening in the schools, both K-12 and what's starting to happen at the university, at the undergrad and graduate levels, for being able to continue to be creative and do these projects and meet the needs of the 21st century. So stay tuned. I don't have anything rigid and concrete for you, but this is the guidelines that have existed, and I have the little handouts, and I can I believe I direct you to them. But things are growing. There's growing pains. There's shifts. So in my world, in the School of Ed, we use academic language terms often. And so I thought, here's a list of some of the academic language for the presentation today. We've been talking about copyright, and it actually comes from the U.S. Constitution. The purpose of copyright is to promote creativity, innovation, and the spread of knowledge. And on Monday night, my students said, and where's that cited? And I had to bring it right up for them because it's like fair play. And if for those of you that are APA, this is an APA format. I actually went and looked it up. And the business of education, what we're all doing, is the advancement of knowledge. So we've been talking about this copyright law. People create something, and they want to use it and then keep doing it and expand on it. But we need the fair use aspect so that we can also use portions of it, and it can go in many different directions. And the technology is so catered towards fair use right now with it. So when I talk to my students about this, I'll say, on one hand, we have copyright over here. You need written permission. All rights are reserved, all of them. And on this side, you have public domain. Go for it. You can get that free clip art. You can do all of this. And somewhere right in here is Creative Commons. It's under the umbrella of copyright, but instead of saying, I've got to write and ask Chris Genter if I can use one of her pieces of artwork, I found one of hers online, and look, It's licensed under Creative Commons, and I already know how to cite it, and isn't she nice? Because she said I could just use her name. Yay, Chris. And so it's really efficient. Grad students like it. Other educators should like it, but not enough people know about it. So it's important for us to educate our students about this information. We can't wait and say, well, wait until they get to grad school or wait until they get to college. They need to start knowing now, because if they keep taking things from the internet without giving credit where credit is due, I don't think that it's going to work out well. This is an example of one of the charts that's been around for years, and I've shared this chart with my students, but in big bold there I have its guidelines only, so all the 10% are listed here, and it's talking about printed material, illustrations, video, use of the internet, television, that's many of those things that were covered in the quiz. But this is where things aren't fitting so well anymore with the mashups. With Blackboard Learn that we've got now, we can bring all of these things in. And so how do you address some of that now? I have all these questions that are starting to occur, and I'm going, I want it to be fair, but I want things to be creative. So this is a book that I got recently, and this is a professor that's in Delaware, Renee Hobbs. If you type her name in the internet, you'll find that she's, I would call her an advocate, activist in promoting this. And this book, I think, is wonderful. I think it'd be great if we could figure out how to bring her to campus, maybe something collegial, to just share with everyone, because this copyright clarity, here's her quote: "At the heart of the copyright law, the doctrine of fair use states that the people have a right to use copyright materials freely without payment or permission for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting." So she's taking that from that same U.S. constitutional quote, but her position is now, and there's a group of folks since 2008 that have been working on a code of fair use for education. The film industry several years ago put together a code of fair use for film. But education's been squandering with kind of this subjective interpretation. That chart says, but they're guidelines, how do we go? And so she's sort of carrying the torch now, and people are starting to go, you're right, we need to do something, the technology's changing. So I actually have the book here, and as I'm talking, I'll pass it around so that you can take a look if you're interested. This website's listed on the handout that I sent.
Dr. Ginter?
Yes?
I can't help but notice that the foreword is written by a huge educator and researcher and advocate of the education profession, so there must be a strong...
It's a strong coalition, and it's
Great.
gaining momentum, and I wished I'd known about it sooner, but that's one of the reasons we have CELT here. We can share what we're learning. The book is very, very readable, and of course I want you all to notice that I handed it to the librarian first so that we can get that addressed there. So that's the situation where it is. What can I do in the meantime? Well, actually this evening I have class with a group of student teachers, and tonight's theme is arts and social justice. And so we talk about social justice, but at the same time we're talking about the justice that needs to be across the arts. I ask them, and I asked the grad students on Monday night, I said, where you work, are there copyright policies? And most of them aren't sure, or they don't know. But Chico State has copyright policies. And the link is on the handout that I sent to you, and it's listed. But what's interesting, we'll see if this pops up. I'm not sure if it will or not. Let's see if it pops out. Yeah, so here it is right here. And there are the executive memorandums that are listing it. And then they have copyright basics, so they go right, and notice all the links, a copyright crash course. But they're linking out to other sites as this all goes. Copyright, there's a primer, look at the dates, 2002, 2005, as you go through. And then as you scroll down, there's some links. But the thing is, it's because everybody's sort of looking for, how do we interpret this and what should we follow? So it comes back to looking at this fair use guide and what's emerging with Renee Hobbs in the group that's moving forward with it. It's actually a pretty exciting time to be thinking about it. So I thought, okay, copyright policies, working with my students and sharing. It needs an image. I'd better model copyright practices. So, as you see right here, this is the space shuttle, and this is a NASA photograph. And because it's a government document, it's free to use. All government documents are free. And so, and when you go and you take a look at the site, and so I gave you the site to NASA, it's called GRIN, Great Images from NASA. And that's what it says. And it clearly says on there that these are, you can use these, but what they ask for is you include where it comes from. Pretty easy to do. And so I put it in there, but I thought it's uncharted territory for us as we move forward. We have an idea of where we've been. We know that it's a bit subjective, but there's much yet to explore. So we're going to explore. I have here, let's see if this will pop up.
Mean to be human if we don't have a shared culture. What does a shared culture mean if you can't share it?
It's only in the last 100 or 150 years or so.
I'm looking for the audio.
Tightly restricting how that culture gets used.
The internet enabled an infrastructure where anybody could participate without asking permission.
We have all these new technologies that allow people to express themselves, take control of their own creative impulses, but the laws getting in the way.
Creative Commons is designed to save the world from failed sharing. People who actually want to share stuff, who put it up on the web because they want to share it under certain terms.
So we wanted to create a simple way for creators to say to the world, here's the freedom that I want to run with my creative work. Here are the things you're allowed to do.
Can I reproduce it? Can I copy it? Can I put it in my textbook? Can I use that photograph? Can I make a new version of it?
Creative Commons gives tools to creators to make a choice about copyright.
Creative Commons license can cover anything that copyright covers.
Every license says, you need to give me attribution. I created this, give me credit for the work I did.
The basic choices are commercial use or not. Can you make derivative works, versions, adaptations, or not? And do you want me to have to share alike? So if I take your stuff, do I have to offer it to the next person under the same terms?
There's no requirement for you to do anything with your work other than what you want to do. You own the copyright to it. What we've done is given you the right to exercise your copyright in more ways, more simply.
So the idea here is to enable the creative impulses that the technology turns loose and get the law out of the way.
The work of Creative Commons is really about laying the infrastructure groundwork for this new type of culture, a new kind of folk culture.
Somebody from Delhi, somebody from New York, somebody from Singapore
can feel comfortable using a photo that was created and given away by someone in the United States or in China or wherever that the licenses have been extended to.
with their identity being preserved.
Which means that people can actually create new kinds of things, come together and build things.
Mashups that people can do with people's Flickr photos.
And CC Mixter has allowed artists to make music together.
It's really about creativity and connection.
Access and control.
From amateurs who simply have a love of what they're doing and they want to share it and they want other people to make use of it, to commercial organizations.
In the end, this will have a very successful place in the for-profit economy.
Creative Commons is the bridge to this future. Is you got to move away from thinking about content to thinking about communities. Communities that develop around content. And the sharing that the licenses allow enable these communities to come together.
A physical commons is like a park where anybody can enter equally. The commons with intellectual works is actually much freer.
It really is going to be the pillar for communication between people, cultural exchange.
A space for more speech, more free expression.
And that's the kind of commons we're trying to create.
So this particular clip is called A Shared Culture, and you can find it right on YouTube. But that, it actually gets at what I was talking about, and I saw Rob nodding his head, that if you have this here and you give the permission up front. Now they showed in the clip there lots of images, but this applies to a PowerPoint presentation, or this it applies to anything that goes up, any sort of mashup that you do if you've used permission. And then you can cite it and put it online so that others can learn to read the license. So that requires a little education. So I made this chart. You can go to the Creative Commons site and it's all in white, but I was thinking, you know, it's kind of Halloween, almost, got the orange and black thing going, and I actually thought that color would look nice on this pale yellow. But I needed something to just put them all together in one spot. And so to help you see this, and this is something that I'll share with my students as well, the left-hand column, the CC's Creative Commons. And then you can share by attribution. So you can see that one is the most open one. Lets others distribute, remix, tweak, and build. So if you click on an image and it's got the CC symbol and you click and you see that license, then you go, all right. Then the next one down, share alike, and that's the SA. So they've given it to you visually and with the initials. So that's what the letters mean. Or share alike, you have attribution, no derivatives, attribution, non-commercial, non-commercial, and non-commercial on this side. So you can start taking a look. But the first time I saw them, I went, oh, this is just too complex for me. I just want to draw, or I want to. But when you start looking at it, it's not that difficult. So you can, there's two sides to Creative Commons. The first thing is when I talk with my students, they go, oh great, I can go to Creative Commons and get free pictures. And the idea is they're not free, but you can get the permission in advance and cite it. You're not going to be held up in your creation. So that's one side. The other side is if you create something, you can go make a license and do the same for others. And for some of them, that's a big aha effect. So on the Creative Commons site, I just did this screencast so that you could see this is very interactive. In a couple of minutes here, if you brought your iPad or whatever, we'll go in on the computer up here. But it only takes 30 seconds. If you can remember the title of what you created, and if it's online, you have the URL. Those are like the two hardest things to do. You just say, allow modifications. Sure, I'd say that. And as soon as it allow commercial use, if I click on no, this window changes to the licenses that are appropriate. I don't have to sit there and start discerning. It makes the choices. Then you go to this one and you answer that, and then it comes down here and look, this is what you would put on the last page of your presentation. And you can actually copy it to a website if you wanted to. You get a little compact, so then they generate it for you, so that it's pretty easy to do. But then you can model it, and then you can help others attribute you. So in that last box, the title of your work, what's the work to be known as, so that when people go to look, they know it helps them cite really fast. So we'll go take a look at that in a second.
And accurate.
Yeah. And here's the search part on Creative Commons. And instead of just going to creativecommons.org, if you put the word search in front, this page comes up. Creative Commons is not a search engine, but it links out to those search engines. And so you can see by going this way, you have Flickr. You know what Flickr is? It's where a lot of images are collected. Photopedia, there's Google, Open Clip Art Library, YouTube, Pixabay. It will search. You can actually say up at the top here, I want something that I can use for commercial purposes. I would most likely uncheck that box, but I would leave the second one there, modify, adapt, or build upon. And then when I run my searches, it's filtering for those people that have listed their licenses for me. Nice. My students will kick in and go, yay. So I think right now, one of the best things that I can do is help my students and my colleagues understand that this is something we can do to model best practices as this shift is changing. The other thing is right here, add a CC search. When Creative Commons first came out, some of you might remember in the Firefox browser, you could actually do a search up there, and they pulled it out. But this actually lets you pop it back in so that you can have a drop-down menu and automatically just select and search by Creative Commons. It just takes a second to do. But wait, there's more. Some of you may know about this one, but if you don't, it's important. And this is, most of the students I know go to Google. We all know it's become an active verb. I'll go Google it. When I was little, Google was this big, big, big number. We used to talk. I remember talking to my grandmother about how big is Google, and the numbers, and we would try to figure out how many zeros it would take. Well, here, everybody has searched with it. So up on the smaller image there where you see the red arrow, you have the little settings wheel. If you click on that, you would simply select Advanced Search. When you select Advanced Search, you get this window. And students, sometimes they don't scroll down, but if you scroll down, you get to one that says Usage Rights. And when you get there, you get a drop-down menu. And guess what? These all say, you know, not filtered by a license, free to use or share even commercially. So they follow along the lines of the Creative Commons licensing. And so that is another way. Those two things, I think, will help educate our students and prepare them for the technology and the mashups and the things that are coming. And here's one more that's, I think, really worth exploring, and we can take a look at it. If you haven't heard of Flickr Storm, that's a really good one, too. And so I took a picture, screen capture of that, and to get there, it's www.zoo-m for Flickr Storm. And this is on the handout that I sent you as well, too. So it should be a live link. But what's nice here is they actually have it linked directly to the Creative Commons licenses. So you can put in, I just for fun typed in copyright there. And then but the green arrow shows the drop-down menus so that you can look for photos within that. And I think that that's going to be pretty powerful. I think my students are going to have fun tonight. They're going to be putting together some social justice posters using Glogster based on the arts. And they're not all going to have images, but are they going to have lots of places to go and look? Yes. And what's going to be one of the criteria for this assignment? Searching using a Creative Commons license so that they can give credit where credit is due. So I thought walking the talk is important. And once again, keeping the orange theme going. I thought I have some nice little orange paintings, but I thought I'm going to go find one. And so I went into Flickr Storm, which is full of wonderful photographs, as you can see over there on the left. And this one caught my eye, obviously, and it was nice and big. So I just took, before I did anything else, I just went, okay, this picks up from the last page. I put in the word color, and then I selected non-commercial and share alike. And then over here you can see the image. It's in the second row, and when I clicked on it, this opened up. But what's really wonderful is this is a little symbol with a CC in it for Creative Commons. And it says by, that's the artist, that's his login name right there. And there's a contact if I needed to contact him, but I didn't even need to contact him. This one says the share alike. I clicked on that and I was able to get his name. So I thought, you know, I should probably model that too. So here's the image, and if I was using it in a paper or whatever, but Evan Leeson did a wonderful photo. It's copyrighted, but it's licensed through Creative Commons. It's a Creative Commons attribution share alike license. And I added this here so that the link takes, often when you're doing a presentation or it's something online, you can actually take this back so the link, it comes when you pick up the license. You can go back and, if you're not sure, what does that share alike mean? But that little chart kind of helps. So, those are some of the things. Now, don't run away yet. I had that. I thought that was a nice sequence. So, I actually sent a handout to all of you, and all of these things that we've talked about, the links are there and they're live, but I also included at the bottom of it 3 books, including the one that I'm passing around right now. The one by Simpson, it's a very good book. It's geared, K-12 teachers like it as much too, but it's pretty practical. It was just, you can see 2011 just updated. So that's pretty useful too. But lots of interesting information. Did I overwhelm you? You're all kind of like, I saw some head nodding. Thoughts? Any takeaways? You get a little bit of new knowledge?
My takeaway is I want to spend so much more time.
So if you have, I see some iPads here, and my thought is that I'm happy. I think we have, probably about 5 minutes, 5 or 6 minutes here, to to kind of pursue this, that I can open up any of these if you want to just take a look or pursue it. Are there any questions or thoughts that you might have? What brought you here? I'm always curious, what's the context for the happy group? Because copyright is not one of those like, I'm really psyched.
You get lots of confused.
Yeah,
folks,
confusion.
And they tend not to like really read what's in front of them, which I can interpret for them, or I need to find simpler ways to explain it, which is that form that you brought up before about like, if this, then that, this is what you're looking for.
That little orange form?
Yeah.
You know, I'm glad to share that with all of you. I didn't put that on the, but I have you all on the email list, and I'll get you on the email list if you haven't checked yet. When I get home this evening, it'll be about 9 o'clock, I can.
We'll take your time.
But that little chart, and I mean, that information isn't me, other than just going into Word and going, I want the orange thing, and just pasting it in and making the colors. That was the aesthetics.
Yeah.
But I think that alone is going to make a huge difference tonight, because with my students, I envision having them, they're going to be exploring this, and then all of a sudden, if I have that up there, it's a quick reference that you could just have a little poster or something that they could look at.
It's in my experience that sometimes it's the most simplest things that we try to make so difficult. And if we just take our time to provide a litmus test for people to apply it to, they can resolve
Well,
it.
I have to tell you, in preparing for this, I kept going, something's not quite right. I'm not feeling good about it yet. And it wasn't until like 2 nights ago when I went, that's it for me. This helped me. It helped me clarify how I could anchor this for you. Isn't it funny? But you're right. Because it's nothing different than if you go to the creative, but theirs isn't a long column.
Right.
It's 1, 2, 3. It was this, and I found I was scrolling up and down. And so it's a learning style thing, I guess.
I'm always interested in some of the myths about copyright. The whole 10% thing, well, I can take 10% of this. But what case law says, if you're taking 10% and that's the heart of the matter, you can't take it.
That's right.
So the numbers, I mean, all our faculty are like, but I can use 10%, or I can use 10% of this workbook. Consumables are not allowed to be reproduced freely. And just because it's on a government website does not mean it's a U.S. government document.
That's right.
There's government websites that have lots and lots of...
You've got to read the fine print. Go ahead.
Because states can and do, many of them retain copyright over their work, and that's the other thing a lot of people are confused about, that it's only federal government where it's copyright free, and even then if the federal government has something on their website that's under copyright, you still can't use it, so that's another reseal.
On the list that I sent you, I think the one on the top, it says something like the best of, let's see what it says here, best copyright-free photo libraries. But even on that site, that you two are bringing up a really key point, that with your students, what you do is you don't just say, run in there and just start mining. Woohoo! What you need to do is go down and look. Even on the NASA site is a really good one to start with, I think, because when you click on it, it actually just says, you may use these, but it's like, this is the next step. What are the terms of use?
Yeah.
And actually, often on a lot of these sites, it's a little tiny link on the bottom, but what are the terms of use? It's not hard to read, but it's like you were saying, they won't go look for it. It's easier just to go get the picture. No one will ever notice. But then it's that sense of ethics and fairness that brought me here today, I guess. So, yeah. Other thoughts? Jim, what do you think?
I like it all. What's interesting to me is that the 10% idea.
Had you never heard that?
Well, no, I have, but today I thought about it's in relationship to the whole works. So if you have a very short piece, then you can only use a teeny bit. If you wrote War and Peace, then all of a sudden now you can use 100 pages.
But so it's like she was saying, you can't. It can't like give the anchor plot of the story away. So and the Supreme Court, Sandra Day O'Connor, and I mean they understand this too. And so the next step, I mean, if I was doing a follow-up one, stay tuned. We'll see what happens. It would be to take a look as this fair use code of ethics, or the code of fair use that's starting to emerge for education, how it's being reinterpreted with all of the technology. So I'm intrigued. That would be it, and I'm going to watch where this goes, keep a pulse on it. And so it might be really interesting to have one of these people come chat with us or with the CSU. Yeah.
I just want to reiterate what Dave said, Chris, which is I teach this.
Oh, yeah?
But I came here looking for new ideas.
Did you get a few?
And I absolutely got some. Your chart is wonderful, so thank you.
Yeah.
Because I've struggled with how to get this to be interesting and accessible to students myself.
Color, columns.
They gloss over it.
Well, or building it into an assignment where they have to apply it, then they're more in the know. And certainly with the educators, with the future teachers, I can always say, I mean, I have a little bit of leverage, and so does Debbie. We can say to them, well, you're going to be teaching things like this now too, so it's time you started modeling it now. You know.
Well, I work in the art department in college, and so we have lots of students who want to put things up on the web, or they have put things up on the web, and then they get worried about, is somebody going to just borrow my image or take my, and they're not the best, condition on the web like that often too.
Right.
But, so it's the Creative Commons thing is something they could really take advantage of.
They could really take advantage of it. They could license their work. I mean, in the big scheme of things, who's going to, if it's covered, they would have some leverage down the line if they saw their piece and it was not being followed as they had said. There's one that's, the most restrictive one is the one on the bottom of the chart there, that, I'll bring it back up because I had it hit with the chart. Right here. This one, attribution, no commercial, no derivatives. It's the most restrictive, only allowing others to download it and share with others as long as they credit you, but they can't change them in any way or use them commercially. It's so, in the notion of Creative Commons, it is the most restrictive, and in a way, it's not really different than the copyright, other than just saying,
It's free.
Yeah, it's free.
And this is really on the honor system in the sense that if
That's
I
right.
did make an image and put it out there, I wouldn't really know if someone had taken it.
And no, not unless it came back, I've heard of companies, instead of using this, they put a watermark on it, some of these magazine companies, and they can trace it to the IP on the computers and things. That's another whole area, I'm sure. But if it's on the honor system, and I have to make a decision as an educator, I want my students on the side of the honor. Like I honored you when you came in, we started on time. And we're going to end right on time. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.